Hi and welcome back to Bike Speeds. This week we're going to service this Cannondale Optimo. This was in for a routine service. We're going to do a rear brake cable and actually solve quite a few problems along the way with this bike. You'll be amazed what we do. This was a very basic service for us, so it wasn't a full strip down and detailing. This is a routine service, the kind of service that we do day in, day out. And as you can see from this chain and this rear cassette, on the surface it appears to be in quite bad condition. You'll be staggered the way that cleans up at the end. We had this issue with the brakes. They were foul in the handlebars where they were adjusted poorly and the pads were quite worn, so we'll address those sort of issues as we're doing the bike. As you can see here, the chain is beginning to show wear, but it's not a 0.75, so on this group set this chain has still got plenty of life. This was a teenager's bike from my understanding, so it wasn't a bike that was being used for serious riding. It was a day-to-day bike and just needed a routine service to get it rideable again and make sure that it would be safe for the rider. So as you can see from them parts, we need to take them off. First issue we had here was we couldn't remove the skewer from the rear wheel because it's actually bent in the axle itself, so we need to address that as one of the first jobs to be able to get this apart to take the cassette off. So we just give this a little straighten up. That's all it needed. Didn't need replacing, we just needed to straighten it up a little bit, and now as you can see we can remove that quick release skewer quite comfortably from the wheel. So now I can get the cassette off, so we'll take this off, we'll run this through the ultrasonic cleaner. It had a little bit of rust on it, but it wasn't too badly worn, so it will still do plenty of miles in the condition that it's in, and as you'll see when we clean it up, it almost looked like new. It's quite incredible really. Those parts will be ready to go in the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm also going to take the derailleurs off on this one. There was plenty of tail on the cable there to be able to take that off, and we'll strip this down and get this fully clean. You can see there it's not too inground with debris, but it does need a clean, it does need a lubrication, and it's the same with this front derailleur as well. A similar story to this one where the component there you can see is dirty. It's not too worn, it's not too grimy, it's not too rusty. It will clean up perfectly, re-lubricate, and we'll be able to go again. Now the rear brake was a little bit of a different story. The brake wasn't working very well, the cable was dropping slack, it was very tired, that cable. The pads were quite worn on that one as well, so we're going to really sort that back brake out. That will make a completely different braking experience on this bike. So we'll take the front one off. You can see there the grime that's built up on the bottom of these brakes, very common with the tyres flicking around them for those to get very grimy and begin to seize up. So we'll clean that up, lubricate it, and that will be absolutely perfect when it goes back on the bike. So we're just going to help the jockey wheels here before they go in the ultrasonic cleaner. We're going to peel that initial debris off of the jockey wheel itself. This is something we just do to help the process along a little bit. You can see there that grime. It's actually quite dry dirt, so it's not too bad, but that's the reason why we need to service these bikes, because that you would be dragging around your chain and it would cause wear. It's like having sandpaper on your bike, so cleaning all that off is quite important. So here you can see the old brake pads on the rear brake. You can see how worn that one is on the right hand side there in comparison with our new brake block here on the left. You can see the difference in the amount of wear that we've got on that pad itself, so we'll make sure that when they go back on they're all adjusted and he'll have a fresh set of brake pads on the rear. So we're popping all these bits in our ultrasonic cleaner now. We'll pop those in, run those through, and then we wash that degreaser off of the components to make sure that there's none of that left on there to affect them in any way. And also we're re-lubricating this, so we don't want that degreaser to affect the lubricants that we're putting on the bike. So that's why we do always wash these parts down in a warm soapy water, and then we'll dry those off with a microfiber towel before we re-lubricate them. So all the components that we've decided to put through, we're now washing down. We'll even wash the spoke protector down here as well. You can see that comes up like new. There's no harm in putting that back on. But look at this cassette. You wouldn't believe it was as rusty and dirty, and this chain even amazed me how well that come up. You'll see that in the before and afters, what a huge difference we make to that chain just by running it through the ultrasonic cleaner and washing it down. So now I'm re-lubricating the components. So I'll start off with this rear derailleur. So I'm using our premium grease in the jockey wheels themselves. I just used a little bit of Loctite on those pivot points for the derailleur, and I'm even going to lubricate up the thumb adjuster here. You can see our lubricants in the background there. We actually sell these on our website, so if you ever fancied syringing your lubricants the way we do, they're all available on our website. So that rear derailleur now is looking really nice. Just using a little bit of premium grease on the spring to stop it rusting, and a little bit of general purpose oil on the pivot points themselves just to help that derailleur along as it continues its journey through its life. Same with the front derailleur, a little bit of general purpose oil and a little bit of premium grease on the spring. Popping those new brake pads into the rear brake there. The fronts weren't too badly worn. Clearly this rider uses the rear more than the front, but we're also going to address a little problem with that rear brake, which I think you'll be quite surprised, and it makes a huge difference to the braking performance of this rear brake. So I'm lubricating the thumb adjuster there, a little bit of copper grease on the threads, general purpose grease in the thumb adjuster itself, all helps your cables and everything moving forwards to be adjusted. But I'm even going to lubricate these quick release skewers, general purpose grease, copper grease and a little bit of general purpose oil on the actual arm of that itself. Next up, we're going to wash the wheel down. It's a good way of getting tactile with the wheel, just to feel the spokes, see how the wheel feels as I'm cleaning it down. I can tell an awful lot about bearings, spoke condition, wheel condition, and figure things out when I do that. In this instance, the wheel was fine, so we're just going to put a little bit of general purpose grease there on the hub before we put that cassette back on. I mean, look at that, it almost looks brand new. It's incredible really how much you can do to a bike just by cleaning and servicing it. Now this is a very common problem on bikes. Rotational tyres fitted the wrong way round. Look out for these arrows. They're often, especially on these Continentals, very dark within the wall of the tyre. You can't always spot them first time. I'm just flipping that tyre around. I'm also putting the logo for the tyre over the valve hole so that it helps whenever you get a puncture to make sure everything's in the right place. Just sets the bike up nicely as well. Presents well when I do that. So we've now got the tyre rotating the correct way round. Logo lined up, inflated correctly, did the same to the front, and now we can concentrate on the frame. Now this is a basic service, so we're just going to wash this bike down. So we've used a spray soap there, and we're using our big softy brush literally just to wash this bike down. We're not polishing and detailing this one, so these big softy brushes, they're great for this sort of day-to-day washing down of a bike. And same with these detailing brushes that we sell in a pack of 5 on our website. Great for these bottom bracket areas without absolutely saturating the bearings. You can wash a bike down with minimal amount of water. And these brushes, the big softy there, the detailing brushes, and they're all dotted in the background there of the video. We do all those on our website, so do check that out. The link is in the description below. It helps us with the channel as well. It's a way of us financing our endeavours on YouTube, so do check out our website there. Now we're beginning to pop parts back onto the bike, so these are all fresh and lubricated. The frame's all nicely washed down. I shortened that tail because actually it was quite long, so I've shortened that a little bit so that it won't tap on the pedal arm when it's in the lower gear. We're also going to pop on the rear derailleur, pop that cable back in. That's the original cable, didn't need replacing. Everything about it was okay, it was shifting nicely. But we are now going to change this rear brake cable here. So I'm just going to take out the old housing. Now, as you can see with this one, once I take this cable out, the old housing was actually quite kinked and twisted. You can see here, it was time not only for the rear brake and the cable at the rear end to be changed, but this one through the handlebars here, you can see how that's kinking. It begins to grab the cable inside and it just begins to lose some of its smoothness in actuation. So it's quite important just to check out your cables. Again, we sell these are our super slick cables. They're a very tightly wound stainless steel cable. They make a great shift and a great brake for your bike. So if you are thinking about doing your cables, do check out our website again for the cables. We do those all on our website as well. So I'm reusing the handlebar tape. There's no need to replace this on this bike for the style of riding that this bike was being used for. That will be more than adequate moving forwards. And again, I'm just going to use a little bit of copper grease on the mount itself to stop that corroding or bonding into the frame. And then we're just going to pop on this new cable onto the back brake before we'll get that back in the bike. But this was the issue we noticed. Every time I pulled the cable, this would slacken off and wouldn't go tight straight away. And it wasn't because of any of the cabling, because I'd now replaced all that. The little lug on the frame there was just catching the edge of the cable and stopping it springing back on itself. So I just gave that a little file out. It's an aluminium fitting, so it wouldn't have done it any harm. So we just filed that little bit out there. Once I popped the cable in, it moved backwards and forwards. Very hard to show in this, but the tension was back in the cable and everything there was perfect. So I know this bike is going to brake like never before, because from the factory, it would have been grabbing the way that was. So we've solved that problem on this bike, which is always very pleasing when you do a service on a bike and you service a problem that you know the bike would have had from day one. So we're now putting on the brake. On goes the front brake. I didn't replace that cable, that was absolutely fine. It was long enough there, and I used the thumb adjuster to take it out of the bike, so everything there was fine. Pop on the wheels, and as you can see there, everything's beginning to look good. On goes the original chain onto this bike. We didn't change the chain set. There's a little bit of a problem with the extractor on the other side, and for this level of service it didn't need to come off. We just washed that down and everything was fine there. So next up, I'm just going to adjust the gears themselves, get everything there working nicely, make sure the front derailleur is changing gear nicely. Everything's perfect now with the gears. Spin up the brakes, just make sure that they're centering on the calipers with the rims of the wheels, and everything's perfect there. And now I can run through and torque everything up. So initially I'm working on the hoods, torque the levers up. You can see there they were very loose, so they've been torqued up. Now I'll just check the headstock of the bike as well, just to make sure that's okay. One thing I did here, which was a little detail, takes no time at all, was I just slackened everything off there to line up the logos on both the spacers and the cover on the bearing there, to get the Cannondale and the FSA logos all in line with the stem rather than twisted round as they were. And then I torque up that stem as well. Torque up the pinch bolts, brake pads and mounts on the brake itself on the front brake. So I've gone right through the front end. Although I never took this off, we just check the pedals, pedal arm, make sure all the torques are correct there. Saddle torque as well, that was quite loose on the front one there. Check the back one. Again, you can see there's a little bit of movement in there, and also the saddle clamp itself, and also the rear brake. So we run right through the entire bike. This will be done on every service we do, regardless of what level it is. We do go right the way through the bike with the torque wrench. And then the final task for us is to oil this chain. We're using a nice thin oil on this. This is a lovely oil. Again, we sell this on our website, Mint 365. The idea of this is to oil the rollers of the chain, not the entire chain itself. Get the rollers in the chain nice. So as you can see from these before and afters, a very, very basic service, but what a huge difference we made to this bike. It is worlds apart from where it was. Look at this, look at that chain. Even I was staggered how well that chain came up. It is just worlds apart from the way it came in. So we've cleaned everything up, lubricated everything, solved that safety issue with the brake, and everything's sorted out. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.